Hey, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for waiting a couple extra minutes for our lovely live stream to kick in. We thank you for waiting, and good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you. My name is Angela Young, and I am the co-founder of Art Hive Magazine, and I'm very excited to welcome everybody to the Business Skills for the Modern Creator presented by Broward Cultural Division. First up, we have our first speaker, and we are going to be talking about understanding your business, which is led by George Gadsden. So a little bit about George before we get started with his presentation. Mr. Gadsden is a graduate of Duke University, and he's also a self-taught artist who has been commissioned for many high-profile projects that includes the works of the White House and for the Super Bowl. And today, Mr. Gadsden is going to share some tools and resources for you to be a sustainable creative in your practice. So, George, we're going to let you take it away.
Good morning, Angela. Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much. I wanted to take this time to thank the Broward Cultural Division for actually allowing me to be a part of this, and also, of course, Art Hive and the wonderful things that they're doing. So, as I speak with you today, I want to just kind of have you to give a thought to your business and how what I share with you today you can really adapt it to your business. We're going to talk about three things. One, having you look at your products as an artist, the services that you can provide or that you currently are providing, and then also how do prioritizing what comes first, what comes second, what comes third, and then of course time management. I'm a former banker. I don't have a degree formally in art, and I do know that my success as a banker had a lot to do with uh, basically implementing what I'm sharing with you today, but also at the same time as an artist. So that being said, we're going to move forward to our next slide and actually talk to you about your self-evaluation in terms of you as an entrepreneur or a potential entrepreneur. Now, the word actually entrepreneur, or those individuals, be you an artist or not an artist, people who are entrepreneurs, bottom line, are risk takers. They are not the individuals who are comfortable with just sort of being behind a desk and wanting to get a paycheck every 2 weeks. They're willing to kind of step out of the boat and actually take that risk. And today, the fact that you're here watching us live and gaining in some knowledge and about tools that you can use tells us that you too have what potentially could be that spirit of an entrepreneur. Now, there's a number of different uh, quizzes, if you will, you can take or assessments called entrepreneur quote that gives you your entrepreneur quotients. Those particular tools can actually provide you with kind of what I think you already know, and that is, do you have what it takes really to be a business owner? Are you willing and are you comfortable with actually taking that risk? So I encourage you, if you will, to go online. You can Google Entrepreneur Quotient. You'll find a number of them. The one that you see on the screen here is one actually that I obtained from actually Northwestern Mutual Life that actually gives you scoring opportunities. It's not fast and true. Don't stress out if you don't quote unquote get the passing score. But at the same time, just take note of the results and weigh that against where you're looking to go if you're not already in business, but where you're wanting to go as it relates to growing your business. So let's talk right now, and I'd love to hear from you in the chat box. Having you really take a look closely, just quickly jot down three things or three products or services that you currently provide. And let us hear from you as we're talking. Actually, I had an opportunity to take a look at those of you who have enrolled in the course today, today's session, and I see there's a number of different disciplines from drama to dance, textile artists, sculptors, um, filmmakers, documentary film producers, uh, writers, etc. So there's a variety of you that are a part of the session. And so it would love to hear from you in terms of what you consider some of your products or services. And as I share with you in just a few moments, some of the things that I have done with my business in terms of my products or services, I want you to challenge you to think outside of the box. If most of you right now are in the studio and creating studio art, I want to challenge you to think in terms of how you can take what you're doing in the studio and bring it out into the public. And what I mean by that is, in terms of how do you integrate it into other disciplines, so that the public can have an experience with it, not just those who purchase the work, but those who will forever lasting see the work in public spaces. Next slide, please. So here are some examples. What you're seeing here is actually a piece of work that I did for the International Swimming Hall of Fame, which is presently in their museum and permanently in their museum. But I'm going to talk about public art and design services that I do, as well as special customized recognition awards. And the bottom right photograph that you see there is an actual sculpture that is at the International Swimming Hall of Fame, and individuals who are recognized on a yearly basis, their name actually is as part of a pedestal connected with that particular sculpture. Next slide, please. Here's a public art piece. A nonprofit organization in Broward County reached out to me and asked if I would create this particular work of art. This, folks, was the first time that I've done something of this style. A friend of mine said, George, if I were not at the ribbon cutting, I would never have known that this was your work. So I don't like to be confined to, one style, and so that I can be adaptive in a number of different environments with my art, with my product or my service. Next slide, please. Here's a school board building downtown here in Broward County. Dr. Kathleen Wright. This particular piece was actually used to commemorate the first female African American who was ever elected to the Broward County School Board. So this particular sculpture ultimately has some historical significance. Next slide, please. The Sankofa bird, the Sankofa monument tells a story of 5 different pillars in the African American community, and the Sankofa, a symbol that represents looking back in the past. So, using this as a means to tell history on a permanent basis is how this sculpture and monument was initially and permanently erected. Next slide, please. Just taking a city or municipality's logo. And this could actually vary. It doesn't have to be municipalities. It can actually be a company. So there, I noticed on the enrollment list, the registration list, there were some designers, graphic designers, taking a company's logo or taking a logo of any size or any design. And how can you take that now from the studio as a two-dimensional work and actually make it into something three-dimensional? This is actually a combination of bronze, etc. Here's a design creatively done by an artist in a service that I provided as a consultant to the city of Lauderhill. His design was used to create a terrazzo floor in the lobby of the city hall. Next slide, please. City of Tamarack. Roger Stoller and Albert Paley, 2 world-renowned artists, were contracted actually to create public art, taking my services and my knowledge as an artist and knowing different materials, different process, etc., leading a public art committee through the selection process and coming up with the best artists. Some of you online here are artists whose work can be used in a public setting, photography, even writing, even drama, dance, textile. I think there was a sculptor here that's actually on this live streaming. So taking your work and what you do and your product art and service and taking it and transporting it, if you will, into an environment that gives you another way in which to create revenue. Now, I've said this when I do this particular workshop with the Artists Entrepreneur Institute. At the end of the day, I don't care if I'm a famous artist. What I care about is that I'm happy on the way to the bank. Using all my skill sets, knowing what my products are, my services, and bringing it to the forefront so that I can make money. That's the banker in me. Next slide, please. Creating custom design awards. The far right is the sculpture I did for the Super Bowl in '95 and '99 here in South Florida. Again, those of you who are in the areas of sculpture or even non-sculpture, you can take a two-dimensional work, find the proper company that actually can translate it into something that's three-dimensional, and doing a custom design recognition award program. Next slide, please. Here is a recognition award that I received and my nonprofit from the Jim Moran Foundation for my community outreach with my art. Next slide. Using your skills also and your services or your expertise in facilitating group discussions. Here, individuals are taking found objects, things that we might consider, some people might consider junk, but actually putting them together and building their own piece of artwork and using that time afterwards to debrief in terms of how they work together as a team, who decided on what roles and responsibilities would be taking, who would do what. So again, artistically bringing to the forefront, bringing into an environment, a corporate environment, a way in which people can develop relationships and build a team. Next slide. Another example, just focusing on public and private companies, individuals, one large development company here in South Florida, Carlisle Development and Jam Family Enterprises. Next slide, please. Here, I'm very much committed to community outreach, doing art in communities that otherwise may never experience art. Even taking what you do as an artist, if it's writing, if it's dance, etc., how can you take that particular service, do a community outreach, and by the way, get paid for it, take it to a community that otherwise may not be able to do so. Here's a gentleman at a nursing home. Folks, those individuals in the nursing home still have fire in them, have life in them as well. And this gentleman is actually creating a sculpture with marshmallows and spaghetti sticks. Next slide. And here's a restaurant owner whose wall, I'm in the process of actually creating a mural on that wall. The area where they're located is being redeveloped in a major way, and that whole corridor will unfortunately be gentrified because of the great development that's taking place, but that's all part of progress. And this will enhance her property. Of course, there will be a great economic benefit to her because I believe that even a greater number of people will come and visit her restaurant. Next slide. So I have this question for you. What are your challenges as you're listening to this? What do you feel your strengths are? What are your deficiencies? And we all have deficiencies. And it's important to address those deficiencies and then look for ways in which you can mitigate them or you can basically change what was a weakness into a strength. Do you have family members or friends who are your supporters? And I will say this, if you're hanging around people who are not actually giving you positive feedback and pushing you towards your dream, then it's time to put them on your do not contact list or limit your um, conversations with them. How much time do you devote to creating work? There's not a day go by, folks, that I do not do some type of art. TV is a waste of time. My time is better spent creating art, strategizing about how to grow my business. How much time do you devote to marketing and promoting your work? Where does networking in the community fit in with what you do? I believe firmly that people do business with people they know. So as you're out there in the community networking strategically where you're networking with the right audience, that's what this is all about. And then the last question is, what is your why? Why do you do what you do? Just some self-reflective questions. Next slide. So we'd like to hear from you in the chat room. If I ask you, what would you consider to be, you define as success? What would that be? What is success? What does it mean to you? Let us hear from you. Some folks believe success is being able to do my art full time. I could stay at home, be a stay-at-home mom, or be a stay-at-home dad. And as a result of that, I can do what I need to do for my kids. That's to them is a part of their definition of success. Someone else's success might very well be how much money they have in the bank. Are they able to pay their bills now? Etc. That could be theirs. Another definition of success could be I finally have my book written, or I finally have my website up. So the success is defined by you and not by anyone else. Now, I'd like to say this, so this is very important. The moment we begin to compare ourselves to other people, it's the moment then we begin, if we're not cautious or careful, to doubt ourselves and to doubt our capabilities and our accomplishments. So the key thing is to challenge yourself in terms of what you feel is success based upon what you know your potential is. I heard something just the other day. Potential is not what you did in the past because that's gone. Potential is what's inside of you that's yet still to be fulfilled. So, your definition of success should be prompted and motivated by what you know is inside of you that's still there and waiting to come out. Next slide. So, to get to that era of success, it's important that we all have goals. And if you just remember the word SMART, SMART goals are those that are specific, what you're going to do, why you're going to do it, and how you're going to do it. They're measurable. It is something that you can track your progress against. Attainable. You set the bar high enough so that it's achievable, but not so high that you won't commit to doing it. It's realistic, something that you have the skills and ability to do. And, it may push you a little bit. And then, of course, time bound. I love to use when we would do this workshop face to face with participants. I always put the example out there that at the end of this year, December 31st, I'm going to enter the Mr. Universe contest. Now, the audience typically laugh and we have fun talking about that. But I was specific in terms of when I would do that. The measurements were, as it is now, my waist size is this, but by the time December rolls around, I'm going to have a much smaller waist, but my biceps are going to be at least 5 or 6 inches larger than what they are now. Now, the attainable part was a little bit dubious because it's not realistic. And I know me, I know that it won't commit to doing it. So hence I won't focus on doing that. And of course, time bound, I mentioned December, the end of the year. Years ago, I self-published a book. And my goal was to get that book published. And I actually set my birth date as a time in which it would be done. So as you're defining a goal, just think in terms of SMART and how you can measure it. If we can go to the next slide, I'll just give you an example. So for example, you are wanting to redesign your website. That can is the result that you want to achieve. And then, of course, the time certain would be when you're going to have it done by. In this case, say September 15th, 2020. And then, so how do you know that you've accomplished that? Well, obviously, the website is live. Another example, if you say need to develop a marketing plan, the same likewise. So this is just an example of how you can use a SMART goal uh, process or technique to arrive at setting your goals. Next slide. Now we know that goals also, as life, sometimes is met with oppositions. So here's a force field analysis which has been used in a number of different ways for planning and setting goals. And on the left-hand side of this chart here, you see the driving forces. What's driving you to develop a marketing and branding campaign? Well, you realize, okay, I have no brand, nobody knows who I am, or my name is not out there, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a driving force. Sales are slow. I need to generate revenue. So on the other side, the opposing forces, there will be, and there could potentially be financial resources are not available right now, or maybe you don't have staff. It's just you that's doing it. So here's an example of how you can use the force field analysis to help you in actually planning to set and setting your goals. Next slide. Here, are the opposing forces. We talked about the limited resources, no staff. On the far right is an example of, okay, what are some of the solutions? Maybe research some grants, find some grant opportunities, or in order to say take care of the issue as it relates to the marketing side, maybe finding a student intern at one of the universities as part of their coursework, using them to help you develop the marketing branding strategy. And then the next section allows you to fill in, more information in terms of what those specific strategies would be for each of these solutions, what resources are available that you can actually use to make all of this happen, a check-in point in terms of milestones along the way, and then of course a time certain, the date when you are looking to have this goal completed. Next, please. Time management. My. This, folks, is so critical. You know why I say it's critical? It's because that thing called procrastination can creep in, and before you know it, you're not getting anything accomplished. I love to use the phrase time is an equal opportunity employer. The reason why is because, look, folks, we wake up in the morning, we all have 24 hours in a day. None of us, I challenge anyone to dispute this. None of us have 26, none of us have 28. We all have 24 hours in a day. And it's up to us to determine how we're going to manage that time, how we're going to manage that 24 hours that we have. So, that being said, next slide, please. There are tools. This tool here is an evaluation or assessment tool that allows you to, in the quiet of your home or in a park or wherever, listening to some nice music, you can actually sit down and look at each day of the week, starting at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm an early riser. I'm usually up by 5:36, and I know exactly what I do with my time then. So if you do that for a week or two and really keep track of how am I spending my time, this then tool allows you to come back later and do an assessment and determine where are my time wasters? How much time am I actually spending on my business? Or how much time am I spending watching TV or hanging out with friends who are interrupting me from getting things done that has to do with my goals? Next slide. I am a to-do list person because it it helps me realize success. So if you don't have a to-do list, and I'm willing to bet most of you do, this is the best way to get things accomplished. And if you, as you see here, I actually have a section for A, B, C. Those things on the to-do list, or the listed A, are the first things that I focus on. The second, of course, B and C would be the ones that are least important. And if the ones that are C don't get done, that's fine. Now, some of these don't all get done in the same day. Now, it's important to note too that you may have a to-do list, but simply putting it on the to-do list without putting a time when you're going to do it, and that's what's over on the right-hand corner. So by doing this, this to-do list and having a time certain, you're more likely to be more efficient in terms of how you're going to work your business. Remember to carry out the necessary tasks first, and this to-do list allows you to do that. You tackle the most important jobs first, and you do not waste time on the trivial time. And if your friends call you and you want you to come over, or they want you to come over there, you can look at your to-do list and see, okay, what do I have to do? And you can, of course, make some time for them if need be. And you do not have to stress on large jobs, that are coming up, and particularly on those that are really unimportant. Next one, please. So I'd like to just leave this with you. These are some books that you might want to avail yourself to. One has to do with artist grants, and I referenced that earlier in terms of a possible solution for doing what you need to do. There's a book that I've had in my library called The Legal Guide for Visual Artists. Some may not be able to afford an attorney. I have used this particular um, book by Ted Crawford, an attorney. You can actually Google online and find this. And I've actually used this with large corporations when they've commissioned me to do artwork. It's very good. Dig your wells before you're thirsty. I reference networking, using that as a tool to really market your business and grow your business. The premise of this book is by Harvey Mackay, the guy who wrote Swim with the Sharks. When you have dug your well deep with relationships, people do business with people they know. The deeper your well is with relationships, when it comes time to go after a project or to solicit business, etc., guess where you go? You go to your well. You go to your well. Guerrilla marketing. Many years ago, I had a mortgage brokerage business for about 4 or 5 years. It was just me. The concept of Rambo being the only person fighting against his enemies is what I incorporated in my business. And it was because of this gentleman, J. Conrad Levinson, guerrilla marketing tactics, where the public thought that I was much bigger than I really was. But it was just me by using those guerrilla tactics to grow my business. And for those of you who are I've seen registered here, you know, cafe, callforentry.org, a number of opportunities there for public art, for art exhibitions, etc. You would upload your work, and not just it's not just for sculptures and public art, but there are also publications and companies that subscribe to this that actually put their call to artists for exhibitions throughout the country, and some of them in other countries as well. And then, of course, the complete guide to 2020 artist grants and opportunities. This is in an archive.com, I believe, is where you can access this. It has a number of different resources for grants and grants opportunities. Next slide, please. So as a recap, think in terms of your business. Okay, you're assessing and understanding your business, understanding what your products are, understanding how you can take what you do in the studio and translate it into a product or service that actually can then be enjoyed by the public. You know, public art being a good example for photographers, for writers, for dancers, even just thinking outside the box. At the same time, priorities, knowing where you want to go. If you don't know where you want to go, you never know you got there. So knowing where you want to go, having a goal, setting particular specific things, specific strategies with timelines, time certain, so that when you arrive, you know what it looks like and you know when you got there. And then, of course, time management. Without using time wisely, you will continually be procrastinating. You'll allow some time wasters, individuals, and even tasks that we are guilty of doing that will keep you from effectively using your time. There's more that could be said here. The next presenters will provide you with even greater information. And I want to take this time to say thank you for allowing me just to share some of the things that I found has been helpful for me. And I trust and pray that you will find them helpful for you as well. Let's be creative.
Hi, George.
Hi.
If you don't mind moving slightly over, I've now replaced the screen. Oh, yes, we want to see you there.
Okay, all right.
Thank you so much for all of that information. What I want to do first is talk about what people have been sharing with us through the comments.
Sure.
I want to let you know first, some people mentioned who they were. So we have on board, and I'm sure more people are here, but we have visual artists, mixed media artists, fine art photographers. We have product designers and illustrators. So a nice array of people that are watching. Yeah. I want to first tell you what people were saying about your answer about defining success, because I think people had some really great answers. So Phil said that success can be a balance of being able to do the art that makes you happy versus what you have to do to make a living.
Great. Yep.
Sarah says that success is financial independence, a recognizable brand, and to be known as someone who's using art to make a positive impact on the environment. I like that.
Awesome. I like that.
Kim said that success for me as an artist is to stay active with my practice and that I continue to collaborate with others. For me, it's about interactions.
Awesome. Awesome.
Eduardo said that success for me as an artist is to stay active with my practice and that I continue to collaborate with others. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading Kim's again. Sorry, Eduardo, you did not say that. Eduardo said, success is making a difference in the world through sharing my creative gifts with my community and making a living from my work and supporting my family.
Great. Great. These are all great answers. As you saying this, I'm thinking we have the best job in the world because we can work and do whatever we want to do with what our skills and talents are until it's time for us to leave this planet. We don't have to retire. That's not in my DNA. So all of you, what you're saying is excellent, and you are focused and moving towards that word of success because it's internalized. I feel it. You're committed to it, and you will get it done.
Absolutely. So I have a couple of questions for you
Sure.
that came through. So someone had mentioned, how can someone be prepared right now for success? Because you were mentioning what is success, especially with what's going on in the world today. I think artists and everyone included are all thinking, what do I do now? So what's your interpretation of that answer?
Well, and I'll reflect because recently I was introduced to a book off of Oprah, um, and the time is now. Um, and this particular author was really rattling the cages as an activist in terms of what we can do as it relates to what's going on in our country. So I said, I got to get this book because somehow what is being stated is actually could be helpful for me. So where it begins, to answer your question, is a shift in how we think.
Okay.
A shift in how we think, first of all, believing and knowing that we do have something to offer the world. I've found sometimes artists are saying, "Oh, I'm just an artist." Oh, no, I no, we don't accept that. You have a gift, so it starts first with that, and then secondly, really identifying, doing an assessment and an evaluation. Okay, what is my gift, and then where does my gift best fit? And then once you know where the mindset is, I've shifted my mind in terms of how I'm thinking. I know what I have to offer. I now just need to do the due diligence. And it's not something that this is not this is not a sprint as an artist. Okay, this is a marathon. We continue every day. So the mental aspect, continually saying, okay, this is where I'm at, how I think, this is what I know I have to offer, how I can change my environment, how I can change my world, and always be open to fine tuning that and knowing your purpose. Once you know your purpose, continually focus on your purpose and make it happen.
That's wonderful. I just had Paula come in with a good question. She actually mentioned that she's new to art. And so after a
Welcome.
long career, how do you begin to define your goals and success? And I'm assuming I'm just now going to speak for her, but probably coming from another career where there's very definable goals, right? If I used to be a teacher, so it was very clear. You have your lesson plan, you have the children do the tests, and now you define what success is by these test scores. That's very easy, but in art, it's so different. So how would you answer Paula's question?
Well, I would first start by saying, okay, doing the assessment. What do I have to offer? What am I doing? What's my discipline? And then from there saying, okay, now as a in the AEI, the Artist Entrepreneur Live classroom setting, I actually have all the participants stand and do something like this. And I tell them, okay, that will represent a change in paradigm and a change in how you think, shift in your thinking. Now you are a business person. As a business person, you think, what do I have to offer and how do I monetize it? It's now you're going to learn from other presenters throughout this whole session specifics. your products, how do you price it, how do you market it, etc. But the fundamental thing, you just starting out, okay, how do you package yourself? It's important that even at the out of the gate, people know who you are. Even something as small as a business card. Your business card is your billboard. Then, of course, your website. Having a website, begin to build those small little things there over time. And then as you market and getting out there, giving your card out, people invariably will go to your site. But setting for yourself small, short term goals to say within the next 6 months, this is what I want to have in place. I want to have my collateral material, my brochure, my business cards, a bio, even if it's just 4 sentences. Some folks say, well, I don't have a big art history. That's fine. As long as you've got something, an artist statement. So those are those small things that you could start with. And then over time, you'll come back to AEI and you'll learn other things that you need to do. I hope that was helpful.
I think what you said is very important too about doing small attainable goals. I think we also get caught up. We're in a social media world, so it's easy to see one artist share one moment and say, man, why can't I have that? But and I don't know what you think about George about this, but also just comparing our own successes to our own successes, each of our paths, we cannot compare to one another. So I think that's something that's for an artist especially is very, very important.
And I referenced that earlier, and I said that the moment that we begin to compare ourselves with others, now I'm not saying don't admire where
Yes.
other folks are and what they're doing, but at the end of the day, compare yourself with what you want to accomplish. And when you accomplish those things, then there's a sense of satisfaction. Okay, this is what I want to accomplish because I know I have it inside of me. Okay, we all have it in us, folks. So we can focus on this is what I want to accomplish. And once you've done that, then set another goal, and then set another goal, and set another goal. At the end of the day, this is my favorite phrase: do what you love, the money will come. Do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life.
So, so true. I want to know, George, you mentioned that you were also a banker. How do you think that helped navigate you as an artist? And so maybe the people out there that might feel, man, I haven't been an artist since I was a child. That doesn't matter. Having other experiences in the world also will translate. So how did being a banker help translate for you?
Being a banker helped me understand a number of different things in terms of how to bring it into my art. First of all, professionalism. Professionalism is the key, is one of the key ingredients. We as artists have to dispel the myth that we're just kind of like loosey goosey and all of that. But truly focus on how do I show that I'm professional? Show up for my appointments on time. Have an agenda in my head in terms of what it is I want to talk to the clients about. The International Swimming Hall of Fame, the president reached out to me and said, "Would you contact me?" I didn't wait 2 weeks to contact him. I called him the next day. It's those types of things as a banker that allowed me to really bring it into my business. And I actually was very successful in my loan closings because I had on the outside of my folder a checklist. So I knew what was inside the folder. So here's how does that translate to projects that we work on as artists or my to-do list, my checklist, and I had to prioritize. So those are some of the things that I brought from my banking business. And at the end of the day, folks, also money. Money is not my God. We need finances to live, but to stay in business, you have to make money. So you don't accept any project saying, "Oh, well, I'm just going to do it because." No, don't get me wrong. I believe in giving back and doing those things, sometimes at a reduced cost or no cost at all. But every product or service that you provide, you don't want to just break even. You want to make a profit so that you can be around 20 years from now to continue to provide the products and services that people need because you have what our world needs. That's how I brought as a banker into my art business.
That's wonderful. Another question we had, Sarah was asking, what's your opinion on this? She wanted to know, she's going to go into a new field of art, but she said she doesn't exactly have any examples of this kind of work. So how do you build a portfolio around this new field while trying to sell yourself at the same time?
Well, that's a good question. I think solidifying. Let's just say as a sculptor, I started out painting, but let's say as a sculptor, I've got a good body of work in sculpture. Okay, now, but at the same time, I do photography, but not many people know of my photography. But solidifying the brand as a sculptor first, developing the exhibits, in other words, the history and the story of your journey as an artist, and now moving into another discipline, another medium, you bring the history with you. I'll give you a good example. If you recall, on the screen there was a large red sculpture on a building that had looked like it was a fire station actually. Albert Paley, and you guys Google Albert Paley. He's a world-renowned artist. I've been to his studio, 35,000 square feet. To envy, okay. But here's what happened. He is such a phenomenal sculptor. I received on his email list. He's now taking designs of his and he's putting them on area rugs in exclusive buildings. So that's an example of he's built a reputation as a renowned artist, a sculptor, etc. And now he's moving into a completely new field, if you will, of work being created. And he's taking some of his sculptures and some of his abstract paintings or designs, and he's putting them on rugs for folks' homes and for nice exclusive hotels, etc. So start small, create that reputation, if you will, of as the artist and the branding, etc., and then venture when you're ready into another medium.
That's perfect.
Some folks challenge, say, well, I want to stick with one thing, and I don't want to be all over the place. Well, I respectfully disagree. Um, I also do glass work as well, glass jewelry, uh, welding, etc. So hopefully that answers your question.
I think it was great. Out of curiosity, do you have an opinion on a social media site functioning as your website versus having a traditional website? Do you have an opinion on that?
That's a very good question. This you will get into much more deeply when you speak with the presenter. Will talk about your business plan, and the most important thing is this: the social media that you use has to be adaptive to the target audience. Okay, because say for example, if you're trying to reach um, seniors, it's very likely that seniors are not going to be on Instagram or Snapchat. Okay, so that knowing who your customer is important. When you know who your customer is, the demographics, ethnicity, income, then the other part of the discussion is knowing what the psychographics is. And what I mean by that is how does your customer think? What magazines do they read? What social media platforms do they explore? Are they on Facebook or are they on Instagram? Or are they on Snapchat and all those others? Then when you know how they think, then you want to be where they are when they're online. But if they're not on Facebook, then don't be on Facebook. I'm not saying not to have a Facebook page, but that may not be where your major source of marketing is. I have a publicist that does all my social media, and for the purpose of continually getting me out there, whatever it is I do, wherever I am, she places it out there because branding is important. You've got to have a presence because out of sight, out of mind. But then when it comes to targeting your client base, that's where you need to do research to determine, okay, this is how I need to best focus on my primary target. But yes, I can have the Facebook and the Instagram, etc. But this is where my target market is and how I use my social media for it.
This isn't a question as much as I just wanted to share what Kim wrote in regards to what she has going on. And just so you know, she said she worked as a curator and led an artist in residence program for 7 years. And she said that professionalism and presentation are always key areas of evaluation for a reviewer. And she said that she passed up on collaboration with artists who went missing or didn't respond to her inquiry seriously or in a timely manner. And she agreed with you, don't underestimate the power of professionalism.
Yes, I actually, I don't have a foundry where I create my bronze work. I create the work, I take it to a foundry. They have all the equipment, etc. And this one particular manufacturer, if you will, I reached out to him. Well, he was referred. This was many, many years ago, and it was a week later he calls me back, and I said, "Thank you for calling me back, but I've moved on." Here's why what that's an example of professionalism. When someone calls you, within 24 hours, at the most 48 hours, you should return that person's phone call, because particularly if they're looking to do business with you, and you're not coming through, okay, then that's not a good sign. And I don't want the day I have deadlines to meet and you're not coming through for me. I have a client that's a billionaire, and I won't mention their names because some of you may or may not know them, but I only had one chance to come out of the gate looking right the first time, because they have the financial resources to go someplace else.
Of
So
course.
professionalism. And when we do that, ladies and gentlemen, we then dispel the myth and the concept that folks have of us as artists, that we're just like, got our heads in the clouds. We've inhaled too many oil paint fumes and, joking, but that is the reality. Yeah, that is the reality.
I think it's also true, especially because think about how many options people have nowadays, and when we underestimate that and maybe over-evaluate ourselves a little bit too much and forget about almost like those simple everyday manners, and which is professionalism and simple things, it goes a long way with people. And even just talking to people in person, what an amazing I've experienced being in publishing has done versus an email and talking and making a human connection, which we're now making a new human connection this way. We may not be seeing each other in person, but we're still making a human connection. And I think that's what maybe sometimes people are forgetting, which comes into the fact why you're a creative, you're an entrepreneur. It's those two things that go together, because you're talking so much about mentality and psychology and sales outside of being an artist.
I will share with you, a couple of years ago, I invested in a thank you card. And it's a design that when the card is open, my logo pops up as a three-dimensional piece.
So clever.
Paper. So I did that for two reasons. One, when I meet with the client and we consummate the sale or what have you, they receive from me a thank you note, not by email, okay, but a card. The fact that I took the time to actually write a note, which we don't do today because of emails, etc., or texting. I sent them a note to say, thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you. Thank you for your business, etc. They open it up and there's my logo, George Gatz's studio. So my point I'm making is that we don't lose the human touch. That is so important. And see, I love looking in a person's eyes, because their eyes tell me about their soul. So when we can have that face-to-face exchange and then follow up with something written, it just puts us in a different category compared to, say, some other professions.
That's so wonderful, and you're so exactly right. One other question we got was, we may have discussed this before, but maybe also just for people that may or may not be just tuning in right now, especially with COVID right now and everything that's going on in the world outside of this, how do we stay focused in as artists right now if we can't have a community together?
That's a very good question. It this is important. This whole COVID uh, situation we're in right now has caused me to begin to think, how can I still connect with people, and particularly
Yes.
nonprofits, kids. I do kids classes, etc. Used to be doing the face-to-face type of thing. So how do I still keep them connected? And this is going to be the way to do it for right now. Okay. And then, of course, once this lifts, then we'll go back to using wisdom with the safe distancing and all of those things. But being creative and thinking outside the box. The other important thing is this: if you have a client base and they haven't heard from you since this whole pandemic, then shame on you. And I say that because you can still be in communication with them and let them know I'm still here. In fact, I'm looking for new and creative ways to stay in touch with you. Actually, at today at 1 o'clock, I'm scheduled to be on a Zoom or Google with my nephew, and because they want to take art classes. Okay,
Oh, that's nice.
so using the what we have now to work with to stay connected to our communities and bringing to bear what we do as artists.
That's wonderful. Some people were asking also if you could re-mention some of the books that you
Yes,
had mentioned
yes.
before as
Um,
resources.
yes, one is Dig Your Wells Before You're Thirsty. That's by Harvey McKay. And the premise is about developing relationships. The book, um, Legal Aid for Visual Artists, last name author Crawford. It's a very good book that gives you templates and samples, and you can, create your own contracts or assignment agreements. That call for entry, callforentry.org is a website that I've used to find out about public art opportunities, art exhibitions throughout the country. And of course, you have to have a body of work. And if I could just sidetrack for a second, if
Sure.
you don't have a body of work, and to the young lady who asked about just getting started out, focus on short term creating a good body of work, at least 25 works of art minimum, so that now you'll be ready to do a show if you've been invited to do a one-man show. So call for entry allows you to upload your work on your own your own platform, if you will. So when you know of exhibitions or a call to artists for public art, you can then click on the photographs that you can submit. I think it's the maximum of 10 along with description. So call for entry. And then there's also a number of different grants out there um, uh, that is available for artists as well. And if you email me, I can sort of send you the link for that. There's a site, the archiveworks.com, I believe it is. They actually have on their site that particular uh, information on grants and opportunities for 2020 for artists.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
You know, Fabio, I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, mentioned that entertainment and all forms of art will be more important than ever based after what's going on with COVID. And
absolutely.
especially now, what are some things that you're doing right now, George, to keep yourself hyped up, pepped up, and motivated? So when we come out of this, you haven't just turned around and saw a year fly by. What are some things that you're doing?
Well, I'm reading. I read a lot. I read. At the same time, I kind of keep my pulse on the new way of thinking right now, and I'm not one that watches the news all the time, but again, we as artists, there's a phrase, I think Levi Strauss said this: art is proof that anything has ever happened in the past.
Oh, wow.
So by being aware of what is happening in our environment right now, you as a dancer, as a writer, as a photographer, that has can have an influence on what you create or what we create. So it's that, and quite frankly, right now, I'm actually getting ready to work on a $200,000 project for creating a monument for a group of folks. So that's where my main focus is right now in terms of getting that done. So, but I'm always in tune with the environment and thinking about how can I meet or work with a different group, doing an online class with kids who may not have the wherewithal to do it. So my tentacles are out there, but right now the focus on this major project is what my main activity is right now.
So what you're telling me is you're diversified,
That's right.
you're adapting, and you're evolving, and you're not afraid to do so, which
Oh,
I
no.
think sometimes as an artist, we can get so stuck in our heads as I create this one medium, this is what I have to do, and you can't see outside the context, because what you're telling me is you're telling me the opposite of that. And that adaptability has given you life and has given you opportunity to see things when they're not there.
I'll give you an example of, and this is where my shift was some time ago. One of the services that I provide, I'm a consultant to municipalities that have public art programs. Okay, and I used to sit on and still have participated in the review panel with the Broward County Cultural Division, selecting the right artists to be selected for the public art. Many years ago, I realized that the artists who are more likely to get a project would be those who can do a number of different things.
Mm.
All I can do is just a sculpture, and there's a call to artists for a wall mural. Pardon me. If there's a call to artists for a wall mural, and if I've never done a wall mural before, then I can't apply. But if I've done a portrait of an individual, and I've done a number of them, Darden Restaurants, the founder of Darden, Dr. Kathleen Wright. Now, if there's a call to artists for a statue of an individual for a monument, I can do that. So my point being is I did not pigeonhole myself into one medium, one way of expression, so that I can make myself available and put my work out there for public art opportunities. And believe it or not, folks, mosaic tile, I've done those as well. So yes, there's a main discipline, which is sculpture,
Mm-hmm.
but I can do the others also, so that
That's
I can
fantastic.
look for those opportunities. And when sculptures are not in, and I'm not commissioned to do that, I can do this and still keep the cash register ringing.
That's perfect. That's wonderful. You know, one thing I want to just make sure of, and also a lot of people were asking, so I want to make sure to let everybody know that this is a recorded broadcast. So if you came in at the end or missed some part of it, don't worry. This will be staying live, and you'll be able to access it later on, because we don't want to have you miss anything of what George had mentioned. But I want to make sure, is there any lasting sentiments or thoughts that you said in your presentation, but are the ones that have just really ring true? I especially, I want to make sure to mention, I love your time. Quote is an equal opportunity. What was the quote?
Time is an equal opportunity employer.
I love that quote. Because we all have the same 24 hours in the day. No one's special. No one gets any extra time unless you're time warping. And you know what? It's amazing, because I think people forget that. You forget how true that is. So is there any thoughts to leave everybody with that's really important to you?
Here's a thought. We were brought into this earth out of all the millions of sperms that came about through, our parents coming together. Only one took root, if you will, and here we are today. So this is no accident. So there's a purpose for being here. You have to determine what is that purpose. Like a butterfly starts with this. Inside that butterfly, inside that egg, is everything that's needed to become a butterfly. So you have the gifts, I have the gifts, we have a purpose. It's not just to be here on this earth to breathe air. Some of you are passionate about the environment. Some of you are passionate about uh, human trafficking. Some of you are passionate about, you say, homelessness. How can we take what's inside of you and use that as a vehicle and as a catalyst to bring about change in those areas that you are? So know that you have purpose, and once you focus on your purpose, your day and your life will always be full of hope because you have a goal and a focus that keeps you going. And that's what I have to offer.
That's beautiful. I think what really rings true to me when you say that is that also just to stay connected with others that think like you.
Right.
Because when I hear that, I feel very inspired. I'm like, what should I do now with my life? I need to do something. So it's really powerful. And if I could have you say that to me every day, I'd probably be 10 times more motivated.
Just remember this. This is important too. And there's a work-life balance. Those of you that have families, those of you who don't have families but have friendships that are valuable friendships, valuable family, there's a balance. Okay, so you've got to manage your time. So quality of life is important. Chasing after the almighty dollar isn't it. At the end of the day, I don't think I've ever seen a hearse being followed by a Brinks truck.
I like that.
I don't think so. But at the end of the day, the person who has a good, solid balance in terms of balancing their relationships, balancing their life, that's the person who lives a fulfilled life. So the key thing is eliminating those time wasters, those individuals who are pulling you down. If you are in an environment or a relationship that when you leave that environment or you leave that relationship, you are drained and you repeatedly are drained and you're depressed, may I encourage you to delete their names from your phone. They're not for you. They're not about pushing you to become what's inside of you. Potential is what is inside waiting to take place, not what has happened in the past. That's how I live my life.
So how do I get these daily George inspirations sent to me? Because I need to be motivated by you every day.
Well, yes, I'm working on that. I'm working on. I have photographs and I have a book I mentioned to you that I published in 2013, and I'm working on. And I set my birthday as a time to have it done, along with my public art book. I'm creating a public art book that shows all my art. So stay tuned.
George, do you have social media that we can follow you on?
Yes, I have Facebook. A Facebook page, and I actually have Instagram too. But now this sounds crazy. My publicist, I have her handle all of that. So if you Google my name, there's definitely George Gadsden Facebook, and I also have the Instagram. But she handles that, and I shame on me, I can't tell you what it is.
We won't tell anybody. We'll all keep it a big secret. So don't worry.
See, I too need to work on that. That I need to at least have that part. I know the Facebook, but the other, she handles that, and yeah.
That's okay. So below, I'm sorry.
What I'm saying is, I'm not perfect. I'm still a work in progress as well. Yeah.
Aren't we all?
Mm-hmm.
So we have George's website down below, georgegadsdenstudios.com. He also has the Facebook and the Instagram that we're going to check out. George, you've been nothing but inspirational and motivating. And this is definitely, COVID or not, the things that we need to hear all the time.
All the time.
As creative people. And we are a community here.
That's right.
This is a community. Broward Cultural Division is a community. We are all here to be a resource to everybody. We are here to uplift and inspire. And I don't want anybody to ever forget that, because every one of us is nervous and
Yeah.
scared.
Yeah.
But when we come together like this is when wonderful things happen, and that's when wonderful things start to occur. So I want to thank you, George, for your time.
Thank you.
And I want to make sure to mention again, everyone's going to be able to see this broadcast in its entirety. So thank you so much for everything, George.
Thank you very much, and thank you, the Broward Cultural Division.